My husband left me for my best friend. I didn't scream, didn't beg. I vanished quietly. But when I returned, I owned more than they ever dreamed of. I always believed betrayal had a sound, maybe a slammed door, a raised voice, or the echo of footsteps walking away. But when it hit me, it was silent. The night began like any other elegant anniversary dinner, fairy lights, clinking glasses, soft jazz playing in the background. I wore the dress Ethan once said made me look like I stepped out of a dream. My best friend, Zara, had helped me pick it. Irony can be cruel. Ethan stood at the head of the table, raising a glass of champagne. "To love," he said, locking eyes with me, but only for a second. His gaze drifted to her. Zara. They exchanged a look. Too quick for anyone else to notice. But not me. Something inside me froze. I forced a smile as everyone applauded his speech. Our closest friends, coworkers, even Ethan's family, all cheering for a marriage that was already dying. A toast built on lies. Later that night, I walked into our bedroom and found Zara's bracelet on Ethan's nightstand. Not just any bracelet. The one I gave her on her birthday. The one I saw on her wrist just this morning. I stared at it, cold rising my spine like a winter tide. Ethan came in minutes later, laughing into his phone with that voice. The one he only used when he flirted. He froze when he saw me holding the bracelet. Silence. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I simply said, "Tell her next time not to leave evidence." He tried to talk, to explain. But I walked past him, clutching the bracelet like a trophy of war. That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed up listing everything I had built in the past decade, not for him, but with him. And what I do now, without him. But not broken. Reborn. Because if they thought they could destroy me quietly, they hadn't seen me roar yet. The next morning, I wore red. Not because I wanted to stand out, but because I wanted to remember. Red, the color of fire. Of rage. Of rebirth. The color Zara once said didn't suit me. I stood in front of the mirror, no tears, no trembling. Just focus. I didn't tell Ethan I was leaving. I didn't scream, beg, or slam doors. I made his breakfast, kissed his cheek, and watched him pretend nothing happened. Perfect. Because now, I wasn't reacting, I was planning. Over the past 10 years, I have helped Ethan build his event company from scratch. I ran his accounts, managed his vendors, and designed his best-selling packages. My name wasn't on the logo, but it was on every invoice, every success. And while he played CEO, I played the shadow. That was his mistake. He forgot that shadows see everything. I spent the next few days quietly pulling every document I ever touched. Bank records, contracts, client lists. I knew all the passwords. I had built most of the systems myself. Meanwhile, Ethan was busy, celebrating. He and Zara had grown careless. A weekend getaway popped up on his calendar. He didn't even bother to hide it. That was when I called my lawyer. "Can we do this without alerting him?" I asked. He smiled. "Oh, we can do much more than that." The next move? I met with Zara's biggest client, the elite wedding venue she'd been bragging about for months. I walked in wearing red again. "I hear you're looking to expand," I said, sliding over a confidential report, one she'd accidentally sent me last month. "She's planning to leave your venue for a competitor once she locks in this season." His jaw tightened. By the end of that lunch, I owned 49% of Zara's biggest deal under a quiet partnership name. Game on. I was no longer the wife. Or the friend. I was the storm they didn't see coming. And just like that, the girl who walked out of her marriage quietly was now rewriting the rules they thought she'd always follow. The day I flipped the script was a Friday. Zara was hosting her grand engagement party at the very venue she'd stolen from my dreams, the venue I now silently co-owned. She didn't know, of course. To her, I was still the fragile ex-wife with shaking hands and tear-blurred eyes. But those hands? They were signing contracts behind velvet curtains. Those eyes? They were watching everything. I arrived an hour before the event, not as a guest, but as the venue's silent investor representative. That's what the manager called me now. I preferred the ghost in her mirror. The staff knew me. Security let me in with a nod. The decorators adjusted things exactly how I suggested. Every inch of that night was mine. As guests arrived, influencers, designers, socialites, I stood by the bar, anonymous and black. I watched Zara work the crowd in a silver gown, flashing the same fake smile she once used to comfort me during my divorce. Then Ethan appeared. He kissed her cheek. She laughed. And then she spoke into the mic. "Before we celebrate," she said, "I'd like to thank the people who helped us get here, especially the silent ones who didn't cut." My name wasn't mentioned, but my presence was screaming. Right on cue, I signaled the manager. He walked up and whispered something into Zara's ear. Her smile froze. I walked toward the center slowly, my heels echoing like war drums. Every I turned, I took the mic. "You're right, Zara. Some silent people don't cut," I said. "But some of us write the contracts." Then I turned to Ethan. "You fired the wrong woman." A projector lit up behind me, playing clips from the company's CCTV, emails, and financial records. Proof of everything: the embezzlement, the affair, the manipulated contracts. Zara's face drained of color. Ethan looked like he'd been punched. And then the manager announced, "Due to breach of partnership ethics, this venue is terminating all contracts related to Zara and Ethan events, effective immediately." Gasps. Screams. Phones flashing. I walked away before the chaos exploded. Outside, the sky was a rich purple. Cool breeze. Quiet street. I didn't need applause. I didn't need revenge speeches. I just needed them to know I saw everything. And I came back with power. The next morning, I sat on my apartment balcony, sipping tea as sunlight danced on the rim of my cup. No more courtrooms. No more screaming into pillows. No more proving myself to people who never saw my worth. I was free. The night before had gone viral. Clips of me exposing Zara and Ethan were all over social media. They weren't just trending, they were crumbling. Brands pulled out. Clients canceled bookings. The media labeled them the betrayal couple. And me? The woman they once called pathetic was now called iconic. But that wasn't the real win. The real win came 3 days later when I walked into the women's shelter I used to volunteer at, not as a helper this time, but as a partner. I'd invested my settlement money into something new, a foundation for women betrayed, broken, and abandoned like I once was. I spoke to a small group of women sitting in folding chairs. Most of them couldn't look me in the eye. I understood that. So I told them my story. Not the version with dramatic reveals and viral takedowns. The real story. The nights I couldn't breathe. The mornings I wanted to stay under the blanket and disappear. The ache in my chest when I saw Ethan and Zara laughing on Instagram while I was trying to remember how to eat again. I told them about rebuilding one email, one decision, one prayer at a time. And when I finished, I said something that silenced the room. You are not too broken to begin again. You are not too old. Too late. Too small. Too anything. You are still the fire. One woman cried. Another nodded. And in that moment, I realized. Taking everything from Ethan and Zara, that was justice. But helping these women rise? That was the purpose. My pain had bloomed into power. And I wasn't done yet. 6 months later, I stood backstage at a leadership conference for women entrepreneurs. The theme? Rebuilding from ruin. My name was on the banner, my story in the keynote. I glanced at my reflection in the mirror, not for approval, not for reassurance, but to acknowledge the woman staring back at me. She wasn't the heartbroken wife, not the betrayed friend, not the one left behind. She was Mira, founder, speaker, CEO, survivor. As the lights dimmed and my name was called, I stepped onto that stage with steady heels and a stronger heart. The crowd erupted. Cameras flashed. But I wasn't here for applause. I was here to tell every woman who had been broken by love, ignored by society, or abandoned in silence, that she could rebuild. Not for revenge, but for herself. Because when my husband left me for my best friend, I thought I had lost everything. But what I really lost was the illusion that I needed them to be powerful. And what did I gain? Was everything that truly mattered.